Welcome, everybody, to newest edition of One Man's Trash. I'm Ryan Spielborgs. That's CJ Nikowski. I think I did it, right?
You're kind of pointing backwards, but yeah, close enough.
Well, now I'm totally...
That's perfect.
There you go.
That's
There's
it.
CJ. CJ's right here. Today's show, super excited about because we're going to display some things that are framed. So we have some framed stuff. I definitely have to ask you a question, CJ.
Yeah.
So 2020, you know, like general rules of like being a male and female, it's not as chauvinistic as it used to be, right?
Yes.
Like I'm
We've
raised.
made some strides.
We've made some major strides, and I'm really proud of them. You know, like my daughter, we're not raising a cute, quiet girl, right? We're raising a strong, brave, confident girl. And she's gonna be a leader, like all these things that we're all for it. And so today, since things are starting to get a little more equal, thank God, I'm curious if this still counts as being, can I still be considered kind of a dude? So I found under the stairs as I was cleaning out the basement looking for some framed things, a mouse in a mouse trap.
Okay. Dead.
Very dead.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't do very well.
Screamed. High pitch.
Very high pitched. My wife was curious what happened. She thought I dropped something on my feet. I was like, no. No, it was a little dead mouse. So that being said, can I still be considered like a strong dude?
You can be. You're not the alpha in your house anymore, obviously, after the way that Stacy reacted to that. I thought you were going to say your daughter came down and you were screaming in a really high pitch, and she just said, "I'll get it, Dad," and just kind of try to really put you in your place. Because then the idea of your daughter taking over in that area, as opposed to your wife, you might as well just pack it up and take it to the house, because that would not be at her young age, not yet. But no, it's okay to show it. Listen, I think the honest feelings are probably what's most important. I want to talk about your shirt for a second, because that is the second shirt that I have seen now online. Your UCSB, of course. I saw Michael Young wearing a UCSB T-shirt, doing of course, former Ranger great, doing some kind of promo for a charity with COVID and raising money locally for Dallas schools. But I mean, what are the odds that twice in one day I would see that exact same T-shirt?
Hey, there's gauchos all over the place, CJ. Yeah. Jim Rome, gaucho. Skip Schumacher, gaucho. Shane Bieber, gauchos everywhere. All right, so since we're
any number 96s for the gauchos? No 96s? I think anybody ever wore that number?
Well, okay, you got to explain where you got that thing from.
So this is actually a winter ball jersey when I played in the Dominican Republic for the Gigantes and San Francisco de Macorís. I played there in the winter of 11 and 12 for a little bit, which
were
was
they not
fun.
expecting you to be there for long? That's why they gave you the number?
Well, the same thing kind of with Asia for me. I didn't really get to pick my number, and not only that, as you can see, I mean, it's a big jersey. It's got big advertisements on it. It has big advertisements on the back. This is where MLB is headed, or I think at least where they want to be headed one day. As you can see.
My God.
Absolute monstrosity of an advertisement on the back. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if I was allowed to take this or not. I did. I think they wear different uniforms now anyway. But this is one of the last ones that I wore in my career. I wore this one for the regular season, then went and played for a team in the postseason for the Toros. I wish I could have got that uniform. It was pretty cool. And I think I was like 94 with them. But yeah, so one of the very last ones that I ever got to wear. But this is from the Dominican Republic. Good memories, good times. Made the mistake of going hat again. We did that in the Danny Graves episode. This one is not as tight because this hat is only, I guess, 8 years old compared to the one that I tried to wear from 1995. That was, 25 years old, but still doesn't fit great. I've been stretching it out, and I'll have another red mark. But yeah.
Just make sure you breathe throughout the show, because the last thing we want is to watch you fall over.
Yeah. You could take. You certainly could handle it yourself the rest of the way.
Yeah. Okay. So I got my Gaucho shirt on for a reason. First thing framed. I've posted about this thing. It means a lot to me. It only took me 21 years to graduate from UC Santa Barbara, but there it is. Eat it, world.
It's a beautiful frame, by the way. I like the idea that you went with the glass. But also in my house, that means fingerprints everywhere. I don't know how you're doing with the fingerprints, but it looks sweet. I thought you were going to go with like the real obtuse monstrosity frame that's like twice the size of degree, so you could really take up almost the whole wall with it. So while you're excited, you're also showing some humility, which I'm proud of you about.
Well, I mean, you make a great point. I need to get a bigger house, so I need to make a lot more money, and I can have a much bigger frame for my gauchos.
I mean, like the size of that Spilborg's jersey behind you, like that size frame.
Yeah,
just
put it in there
right in the middle.
You know, so my wife, bless her heart, she goes, I cannot believe the first thing you do, you get your degree and you frame it. You know, I was like, you don't frame anything. So out of spite, I framed our marriage license immediately after, like the day later. So I said, what do you mean I don't frame things I love?
Well, you definitely put more care into framing your degrees. That one looks like it might be a little bit crooked in the frame, but that's a great joke, man. Now, did Stacey go to college?
Yes, she has three degrees, none of which are prominently displayed in my basement.
But she was, I mean, so Megan, my wife, also graduated. I did not. We were at the same time, but she was the only one in our family with a degree. And I told my son, I said, listen, you'll be the first Nikowski man to get a degree if you go through the lineage of my family coming over from Poland. I'm like, there's a great opportunity for you. But I don't want to say she held it over my head, only when things like get something wrong, maybe miss a question on Jeopardy or Trivial Pursuit. That's when the reminders would come out. But that's awesome, man. So you guys are looking at 4 degrees right now in the Spilborg's house. Impressive. All right. My first thing is going to come from my broadcasting career, which hasn't been very long, but a really cool moment for me back in 2015. I got this gift from John Entz, who was an executive at FS1, used to be at MLB Network, is at neither of those places now. But in 2015, we're doing a game. It's a postseason ALCS pre- and post-game show. And during this game in Kansas City is when that power outage was happening. And when the power outage happened in the middle of the game. Sorry to interrupt, folks. Editor's note here. There was actually a rain delay in that Game 6 of the 2015 American League Championship Series. The TV power outage happened in the World Series later that year. Suddenly, the pre- and post guys who are back in L.A. have to do an impromptu, 45-minute show. And, we don't have a lot of time at all. It's like, hey, quick, get out to the set. And
that was a train wreck of a group, too. I mean,
a little bit. So it was myself, Frank Thomas. I can't remember if Alex Rodriguez was there. It was either him or Eric Harrows. I think
A-Rod was there.
And Pete Rose was there. So we had a little incident in the middle of the show. You can kind of see it here where Pete was leaning over. And I know it's a little bit of a glare there. It makes it tough. I'll take a good picture for you here. But John sent me this, which was an awesome moment. I had no idea that it happened. And so we're sitting there, we're doing our show, whatnot, and I'm talking, blah, blah, blah. And it happened, didn't know. We finished our segment, we go to commercial. During the commercial, I got my computer out. I'm checking in. What are the writers saying in Kansas City right now? What's going on? Trying to get information for our next segment. And all of a sudden, I start seeing, I have a ton of mentions, which I usually would never get in this situation. And I see that exact screenshot that I just showed you of Pete Rose, the hit king, leaning over in my shot in the middle. And it just kind of came out of nowhere where he just leaned over and then leaned right back. And I'm seeing these GIFs, I'm seeing these pictures, and I'm like, what happened? I had absolutely no idea. We finished the show, show's over, and I'm talking to Pete, and then we had to do the post-game show afterwards. And I was like, hey, man, did you see all this? And I know he's not checking Twitter the way I am, of course. And I said, what happened here? He goes, man, I didn't even know that happened. He goes, I had a fart. He goes, I leaned over. I leaned over on my seat to fart, and he's right in my picture, right in my shot, which was amazing. So it was a really cool moment. It's a little weird one for sure, but a fun moment that got a little play on the internet. There was a couple of funny memes that came my way that I really enjoyed. But I like having this. It sits right across from my desk. So we're doing shows. It's usually sitting on the wall right over there. But a fun moment from the Hit King, who was an absolute pleasure to work with, man. He's a really good analyst. He knows the game really, really well. It was a treat to have him. I'm sitting there, me, it's A-Rod, it's Pete Rose, it's Frank Thomas. I mean, guys that have accomplished a ton in the game, and I'm there just spitting out my nerd facts. But it was a cool little fun moment to have with Pete Rose.
Who would have guessed that you and the Fart King would be so close? It's funny that you mentioned Twitter and your name on there. When I think back, I recollect on that moment. I think I was one of those people going, who the heck is CJ Nikowski? And to be honest, it's funny. Once you brought that story up, it's the first time that I was like, oh, I think I was one of those people that saw CJ Nikowski trending, and I clicked on it. And then I researched who you were. I was like, oh, he played in Japan and Korea.
Yeah. Funny how that works, right?
Funny how that works. And then here we are.
But good times, later. Fun story. All right, I'll go to my second one like we usually do. Let me put this one back here and let you get back in there. So this one is a little bit more sentimental and kind of, I want to say nice, but some news from last week with the passing of Hall of Famer Al Kaline, great Tiger, lifelong Tiger. Well, when I was playing in Detroit, I attended an auction, and Al worked for the club at the time. Can you see that? I can't see myself anymore.
Yeah.
But that covers most of it. So painting here at Tiger Stadium, but if you check out on the bottom, you can see there, Al Kaline and Ernie Harwell signed this picture. And so two of the legends, and like I said, guys that were around when I was there. There was an auction for a charity, 1999, at the old ballpark. And listen, I could have probably got this picture and maybe asked both of them to sign it, but I never asked either one for an autograph. It was one of the cool things about playing there. There's a lot of Tiger greats that would come in and out, but Al Kaline, always around the club. He was either in the booth and later became a special assistant. An absolute gentleman. Really sad news at the age of 85 that he passed away. Married for 65 years to his high school sweetheart. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. Yeah, this all-American story. And he was such a gentleman. But I respected him so much that I would never ask him for his autograph. Same thing with Ernie Harwell. As amazing as he was, and he was another really kind gentleman, I just had so much respect for those guys. I would never do it. I went and bought their autograph in this picture and spent about $1,500 at a charity auction to be able to get my hands on that. But I love having it in my office. But two really tremendous people, a memory that I'll always have, and a pleasure to have been around a couple of greats that have since moved on from this life. But a fun thing that I have for me that sits over a couple of chairs that I have actually in my office or a couple of seats from Tiger Stadium as well. But sad news that the great Al Kaline is gone, but I got a nice little keepsake here from the time that I got to spend with him.
Good chance Al Kaline had his marriage license framed after 60 plus years with his wife.
Isn't that amazing?
He's a much better human. Well, you know what?
65. I'm 21 in, man. I'm not even a third of the way there.
When you meet some of these, I don't want to call them old timers, but I'll call them old timers and mean it in great reverence. When I think of some of the Hall of Famers that I had a chance to just run into, you meet a guy like a Fergie Jenkins. I had the chance to meet a Don Newcomb.
Oh man, cool.
Like when you start talking baseball with them and hearing their stories, and they seem so human, given the fact that everything they've done. Do you have a story that sticks out about Ernie or Al?
So actually one of each. I will tell you with Al Kaline is that I cannot play around a golf without thinking about Al Kaline. And yes, there was baseball conversations in there, and always and we were a pretty bad team when I was there, and he always just kept that consistent positive attitude every time you saw him. That's what made him so unique. This game can bring you up and down. He was such a steady presence when he was around the team. But I remember him giving me a putting tip, and I'm a terrible golfer. But I remember him talking about, balance of your weight and where you want it to be and how much percentage you want on your front foot compared to your back foot. He would talk about making sure you're always shifted a little bit more. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a good golfer.
It's all in the hips.
There's not a single time that I don't go to putt a golf ball and think about Al Kaline. Every single time. Like we had that conversation, I'm like, oh yeah, think about having your weight here. So every time I play around the golf or I'm messing around putting, I always think about him. Ernie was especially cool. I mean, he's just kind of a cool cat in general. Think about his history and how long he's been calling baseball games. He did have that really kind of old-timey feel. Like you almost felt like you were getting a Red Barber type or a Vin Scully toward the end of their career. And when you talked to them, you almost felt like you were taken back in time a little bit. But he was really kind to me, and I remember one specific time he had taken me out to dinner to one of his favorite Greek restaurants. It was so cool, man. It was him, Alan Trammell, a couple other guys, and I just sat there like I usually do when I get around guys like this. I just sit there and listen. I just sit there and a sponge. If I'm asked a question, I'll answer it. I never want to talk over any of those guys. I never want to interrupt the conversation. I just want to sit there and absorb the stories and listen to the stories and laugh with those guys. And it was fantastic, man. And really good books to read about Ernie Harwell, a lot of stuff. No. I was early in my career. If I was a little bit later in my career, I would have tried to grab it. But since Ernie invited me out, I figured that probably would have been a pretty bad move to try to take that bill from him. But it's so cool, man. The idea that I joke around that he really perfected that ball is a long gone when I was pitching, because I was usually letting home runs those days.
You gotta love it, and the history of our game is really special. I love that you mentioned your broadcast kind of like guys that you heard. This one, who would have guessed? I mean, I was doing a segment for Rockies All Access for for Fox Sports in Colorado. And as a player, like, we get asked to do things all the time, and most of the time we turn it down. I have this bad habit. If you ask me, I can't turn it down. And so I would just do a segment once a week.
Spilly TV here again. We're on set still. See? We're still working. This is the first time I'm ever going to check out this new Honda. I think it's called the Honda Contour. Let's go make sure what it's called. Cross Tour. Alright, it looks just like a Honda Accord.
And it turned into, obviously, a career that I never expected. But this is cool. It's an old transistor television.
That's amazing. That is old as an understatement.
It's an old prop. The guys that the guys in engineering, they printed out Spilly TV on the front. They put it in here and they pieced it back together. It's autographed Alana Rizzo when she was in Colorado.
Oh, nice.
She signed
Who else is
She's
on
now
there?
with the Dodgers. A bunch of the workers that are there.
The people who named you didn't get like it doesn't matter. Just you're only focused on the ones that were in front of the camera.
Well, I mean, like, look,
I'm just teasing you, buddy.
Are you gonna know who Oren is? Like, you're not.
Oh
gonna
yeah,
know who Oren
he does great work. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
does great work in audio.
No, he wasn't audio.
Is that a real hanger, by the way, on there? Is that from your dry cleaning?
It is a hanger. It's supposed to look like the antenna, but it doesn't. But this thing.
So this
really
is
cool.
while you were playing, and you have your own logo. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's pretty creative for the time. So this is what, 2010?
2009, 2010. Spilly TV was.
How often would you do that with them?
Once a week.
Yeah, so it's a really
Like
smart thing for guys, like you said. Like I kind of knew I was interested, but didn't really have a lead or a way to get there. And I tell guys all the time that ask about it as far as getting in. Like, yeah, listen, if you have a big name, somebody will give you an opportunity to try some stuff. But if you don't, and you think this is something you want to do, take as many interviews as you can. If you're afraid, I need this. You got to focus on your career first and what you're doing on the field. But take interviews if they're doing extra stuff. Become that guy that the guys in the clubhouse, whether it's a home or road team, which guys are good with the media, which guys that you can go to. And I know that you got to, like I say, stay locked in on what's happening on the field, but doing things like you did and getting that first taste and messing up a bunch. Well, I'm no doubt, like we all did at the very beginning.
Care. I mean, like, to your point, if you're a player watching this thing, you just do it. You're not planning for your future. If it happens, no. I mean, you're laser focused on baseball. By the way, if there was a segment and I went 0 for 4, it was always like, oh, yeah, it's goes on TV. That's why you went 0 for 4. I was like, oh, really? It wasn't because Brandon Webb just carved us up in a shutout? What about the rest of the knuckleheads? They didn't get a hit either. Yeah, it's because I was on television.
That is amazing. So for me, I actually, in '99 when I was playing still in Detroit, Bob Valvano, Jim Valvano's brother, had a radio show on ESPN. He happened to be in the clubhouse. I think he might have just been doing a story on the ballpark closing. And we were talking. He's like, hey, would you ever be interested in coming on in the offseason or in the postseason? We weren't going to be there. And he's like, maybe doing some postseason analysis with me, basically to come on as a guest. I said, sure, I'll do it, I guess, not really thinking much about it. And I did it for 3 years. It's an unpaid thing, and I'm sitting home in October, and just like you and I do now, where we're digging in a ton, I was doing that as a player and kind of getting some reps, doing it with him and just taking those opportunities. And again, I was like, oh, okay, it's fun to do. I don't necessarily think I was thinking this is going to be my career after the game. But that's how you start doing some of those things and then start planning a little bit toward the end of my career, what I thought was going to be the end of my career. I did know that I wanted to do it and try to take advantage of the opportunities. But that's how it starts, man. And we work with guys who will do an interview. I'm like, oh, that guy would be good, if he wants to do it. And that's how you get those first opportunities, man. That's the way that it goes.
That is exactly how it goes. All right, I'll share my last one, and then you'll bring us home. So this one means a lot. I lost my grandfather a couple of years ago, of old age, and he was a immigrant from Belgium. My grandfather and my grandmother both born in Brussels. My grandfather was in the military in Belgium. He actually drove a Sherman tank during the occupation in Germany. He has some crazy stories from back then. And when they had a son, so my dad, so single child. He was 15 when he moved. When they uprooted him to go to Santa Barbara, they had some friends that lived in Santa Barbara, and they took a chance to have a better life in California. And my grandfather was like a pretty good athlete too. He was a judo master. So this is my grandfather right here. And my dad is getting thrown on his back.
For not taking out the garbage?
Yeah, take out the garbage. But it's really cool because like in judo and the art of judo, there's a lot of trust between your, the partners that's tossing you. So that's a father tossing his son, working out together in a pretty neat.
That's an amazing picture. First of all, do you know who took that picture? Because the idea of even getting it like that, especially you're talking a while ago to get that picture, is incredible. But how cool for you to be able to sit there and look at your dad and your grandfather scrapping a little bit, training, and leads me to wonder. You had the Cobra Kai outfit on last week.
Hi.
How are your judo skills?
Not very good. So I was in karate for a couple years, like when I was in middle school. Did it for 3 years out of respect for my grandfather. Didn't love it, but I also didn't mind it.
Yeah.
And like you ever think back to certain like people or things that you did that you didn't realize while you were doing it was going to have an impact on you?
Oh, no doubt.
In karate, like karate was such a fine, like they really cared about where your body was and paying attention to like that. Like I think it's called a kata, right? It was like a traditional. You go through all these different movements. And as a result, when it came to me hitting baseballs off the tee, I had this almost like a program from karate of making sure like I was doing it correctly, that I was, going through this swing path, and, you almost build a discipline, like a work ethic, and you didn't realize I was even doing it. You're just some punk kid hitting the ball off the tee, but because of what you were learning in karate, was translating to another sport. So
wait, are you telling me that the Karate Kid's a true story? That when Daniel was sitting there waxing on and waxing off, that as much as we all thought that was a little bit ridiculous, you're saying, no, that's how it works. That's how
I think it's pretty close to true. Yeah, that's why that movie's so good. It's like the best movie of all time.
It is a fantastic one. But learning skills, I would say that the only skill that, or the thing that I participated in that helped down the road was dodgeball. And just taking big red balls and throwing them as hard as I can at my friends, trying to hit them in the face. It helped me develop some arm strength over the years. I will say along those lines, though, I felt like I got a decent enough arm, because when I was a kid, I don't know about you, but I was always trying to throw stuff as far as I could possibly throw it. Whether it was a football or whatever we were doing. And I didn't throw a football well, but I tried to throw it as far as I could often. And I just feel like over time, that's probably something that helps a little bit with getting that arm stretched out. And then as you get a little bit older, gain some weight. I think that's why we've seen long toss have such an impact on the game lately. All right, my last one is another really big frame piece. Oh, actually, I got to get one more thing to go along with this. Hopefully I can reach without getting unplugged. All right, the first thing I'm going to show you is just this book. And this book is called Clubhouse Lawyer. It's written by a guy named Fred Day. And I really enjoyed this read. And he's actually coming out with another book that he has on scouts that'll be worth checking out in September. But what Fred Day, who is a lawyer in Virginia, does is kind of a side hobby. And I got to know him from my website that I used to have. I still have it, but I started in 1997 and started kind of meeting fans that way and having those interactions with fans. I know what happens all the time now, and so people might not think it's a big deal. Nobody was doing it back then. I basically had a blog that I was writing for the Astros and AAA, and now all of a sudden that kind of started the interaction that we see now so often. Not that I get credit, it wasn't my idea or anything like that, but I was just one of the first.
No, I mean,
out
you're
there.
just the godfather of sports blogging. But I mean,
I invented the blog really in the same way that Al Gore invented the internet. But so this guy, Fred Day, really nice guy. Actually, I just got an email from him the other day on this current project that he's working on. He asked me one day, "Hey, CJ, what have been your most favorite games over the course of your career?" And he asked me this toward the end of my career. I said, I think about my first appearance. I had one game, only one start in my career, the 40-plus that I had, where I struck out 10 in a game. It was the last night game at Tiger Stadium. I said, that was a really fun one for me. I said, you never forget your first save as a reliever. And I said, of course, your first win. And so he sent me this gift, which is awesome. And this is actually the second time he sent it to me. The first time was even bigger than this. And what this is a poster size box score of games that I sent him. And like I said, you see how big this thing is. The originals were even bigger. And it's really, really cool what he did. Not only does he send you these things,
I need one of those.
Yeah, and I'll take a picture, and maybe I'll turn this off and help a little bit. Probably not. But anyway, you can see kind of the top there. He kind of adds his own little notes.
Nikowski out dual shilling.
Believe it, buddy. Every once in a while, even though I was a terrible starter. And then he has these cool little notes that he puts up there. I know you got a bad glare from my screen, but you can see these kind of little notes that he puts on, which are pretty neat. And he digs in. He kind of writes his own stuff on here. And this was a cool moment for me, man. This game was nationally televised. It was on ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball. Chris Berman called the game. I remember seeing him actually afterwards, which was kind of neat for me. I was only 22 years old. But, Fred does these little things on here. Cincinnati starting pitcher, rookie CJ Nikowski, continued his promising introduction to the big leagues. I was actually throwing the ball pretty well up to that point before things went sideways. But I have this in my office. I have another one as well, my first appearance. Also that Tiger Stadium game that he sent to me. But it's cool to look back. It was wild, man. I was having a hard time getting a win those first couple of games. I threw 7 shutouts, Schilling through 8 innings, let up 1 run. It was unearned. He actually threw the ball away on a pickoff. And then I think it was Dave Hollins that went to get it. And then he threw the ball away again. And that's the only run that we scored in the entire game. And, of course, Jeff Brantley closed it out, who is a voice with the Cincinnati Reds now.
The Reds.
These are really cool, man. They're really fun. I have a couple of them. They're big, but it's just nice that a guy out of nowhere, would just say, hey, tell me about some of your most favorite games that you have great memories of as a player. And I didn't know what he was doing. He didn't tell me why. And then all of a sudden these things just show up in the mail. And it was really nice. And so I put them in frames, and they're cool little moments. And hopefully my kids will want them down the road. I don't know if they will or not, but it's cool.
They'll want the frame. They'll want the frame for something.
To put their degrees in. That's the size frame you need for your degree, buddy. That's what I'm talking about. Like real big, right over the fireplace. You can get little small ones for your wife. The frames are the exact same size as her degree, and you kind of put them maybe around your degree. I think that would look really nice. And then you're married.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, I don't know why I haven't thought of it sooner. So, I mean, I will put the degrees. I mean, that thing is really special that you got, CJ.
It's cool. Which one would you, if Fred was to ask you, which box scores or which game stuck out? Big league debut, I think, is a cool one. First hit box score, or any big games that you had that stuck out. I know you had a couple. I know Matt Holliday was having fun with you on episode 6, but I know you've had
I've had some good games in my career, but the one that has always stood out to me was this September 18th game where Todd Helton hits a walk-off homer. Like that would be the box score, because that was the start of a run that got to the World Series, which is why I have that jersey. I'd probably want that one. My major league debut is amazing.
2 for 4.
2 for 4. My family's there. We've shared that story. But if I think about the game of games, the one that it stands out in my brain would be that one.
So when you came up that year, and that was 2004, right, or 5 that you came up?
2005 for an espresso shot.
Yeah, you played the one game in the middle of the season, right? It was like June or July, and then back down. So what did you? Tell me about that. So I never heard this story. Fill me in quickly before we get out of here. That you came up for just that one day.
Here's a challenge. So for our next One Man's Trash, I want to show you batting practice for that first game.
Okay.
And I'd love to see your, and then I'll tell you the story, and you tell me a story of your first game.
All right, that sounds good.
And if you have video, we'll look at it.
I will be able to find some video for sure. Well, I had my first start. When I first went up, they let me throw an inning of relief first. And then 2 or 3 days later, I made my first start. I don't know if I have that first appearance. I'd love to see that one, because I was definitely crapping my pants on the inside. But I don't know if I've ever seen it. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, I am curious about your story. So you and I don't doubt that you've told that story on MLB Network plenty of times, but we have actually never talked about that first call up. It was one game. It was a really good game. You told me about the bat that you broke. We talked about that to Larry Walker, but we actually never got into the success of the game and why it was only one day. How could you hit 500 your rookie year and not get more?
Led the team. I don't know. I didn't understand how I didn't get a multi-year contract after that. All right, so that's our challenge. The next One Man's Trash will be our major league debut with some video that we can share, and I have some. You'll be surprised. It's like a home video. It's gonna be fantastic.
Really?
You're gonna love it.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for paying attention, everybody.